Started, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the Joint Consultative and Safety Committee. I've just got to make an announcement before we start. This meeting will be live streamed and available for playback through the Council's website. Apologies for absence and substitutes. We've got none. I think everybody's here. Brilliant. Item 2, to approve the correct records and minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of February 2021. The meeting was chaired by Councillor Ellis, Roxanne Ellis. Is there any matters arising from these minutes that anybody can see? No. Well, in that case, if there's no corrections, we'll take the minutes as correct and move on. Any declarations of interest for this meeting? No? Lovely. Item 4, sickness absence report. David.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So probably the report appears in almost two halves, I guess. The first half you'll be most familiar with. It's the standard report that we look at for each of the meetings, the quarterly meetings. Just to report an update, I suppose. So we're looking at the figures for end of March, so year end. The outturn for the whole year, 9.43 days, was slightly above target, but I suppose when we think about what might have happened over the year, the 9.43 days against the target of 9 is ballpark, I suppose. In terms of what's happened over the year, we're all aware of that. Absences relating to COVID were perhaps a little higher at the start of the year, around April time, sort of running at around about 19% of absences. I think if we do recall, what was happening around that sort of time, the government were just introducing testing regime, and I think that really started to have an effect quite quickly. So I think that absences that people may have been thinking may have been to do with COVID, that's often it was often the case that really wasn't it. The absence rate reduced very quickly, and by June, only 7% of absences were attributed to COVID. From July last year onwards, very, very few as a percentage. So the overall outturn, as I say, 9.43 days is slightly over target, but only just. If we think about sort of the outturn for March, the figures on page 12, actually, there's been a slight printing issue, which is probably entirely down to me and no one else. The absence rate for March was, in the month, 0.76 days lost against 0.99 last year. So very much heading in the right direction, it would seem. What I can tell you is that for April, the figures aren't reported here, but again, we've reduced sickness down to 9.25 days. So, yeah, the trend is a better trend. Long-term absences still over the year remained high in terms of proportion of absence. About 60% of absences were due to longer-term absence rates. I guess I can only say what I say quite often, which is, we do actively manage long-term absences, and it will become easier. It's become easier because obviously as we return to work, home visits and visits in work become more possible. We still maintain a regime of case meetings with directors and heads of service, HR. So very much, I suppose, onto case management. It's not about sort of doing that for punitive reasons. It's about trying to support people back to work effectively as well. So I would say that what we have in place is good practice, industry standard practice. I think for the second half of the report, Appendix 2, so page 17, is something that we see each year rather than sort of more frequently. So that really refers to reasons for absence. And a couple of things to bring out there. So looking at, the top 3 reasons for absence by proportion, well, post-operative recovery is one of them. You can do things to help support people back into work, but post-operative recovery is what it is. The second most common reason for absence still was stress, depression, anxiety. Not always work-related. It's easy to think that it is all work-related. It's not. But what I would say is that probably against the trend and against perhaps other organisations where we might think that because of what's happened over the last year, absence relating to stress might have increased. actually has dropped. If you look, it's down from about 23% last year of absences relating to anxiety and depression, down to under 17% this year. So there has been a decrease, and one of the things that we'd like to try and explore in the employee survey that's going to happen this year, so that happens biennially, once every 2 years. The staff survey is designed to do all sorts of things, but one of the expectations this year is to find out perhaps what the impacts of COVID might have been. But the stats would tell us that there has been a reduction, which is good. What I would say is that although we do have some support work planned, which is designed to be face-to-face, and it's been delayed for quite some time now, that will be happening later in the year. That work is designed to support managers with team members who perhaps suffer from mental health issues, or those team members themselves, to try to support them. So that will be happening. But in the interim, what we have done is to commission a bespoke wellbeing package. It's designed to just support and raise awareness of mental health issues and what people can do to help themselves. So that was launched about 4 months ago. That's been available to staff quite readily. And also, there have been regular reminders through the intranet and briefings about the Employee Assistance Programme as well. So something that the Council's had in place for quite some years that's designed to give bespoke personal support to people who perhaps do have issues to do with health generally, but particularly mental health. So they're the things that we've been plugging over the last year as well, as reminders to people that there is support available. The third reason, I suppose, just looking at sort of top 3 reasons by sort of prevalence, we have issues to do with back pains. So again, we've mentioned this several times at this committee before. We do have a fast-track route for physiotherapy that we do use. So general sort of muscular skeletal problems continue to be low in terms of their occurrence. But back problems, the rate of back problems, I suppose, or the number of days lost, has increased. And so what I have done is have a discussion with the health and safety officer. Can't report any conclusions to you tonight, but the question is, well, if people are working from home more and have been, is that an issue? So what he's doing is looking into that to find out if there are reports specifically of problems caused by home working. If that's the case, we need to do more with assessments at home. But we just need to get to the bottom of the facts first of all. But it was interesting to see the stats, and back problems can be for a whole range of reasons. It could be to do with manual jobs, but it also could be to do with perhaps jobs where people are sitting in different environments. So probably, Chair, that's all I was going to say about the reports. The tables are there, the information's there, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, David. Any questions on this agenda item to David? No? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 5. David?
Yep, probably much more straightforward. So again, this is a standing item to do with minor changes in the establishment. Again, you'll recall that changes to establishment can be completed through process outside of this committee. Always there will be in consultation with the trade unions, and also always reported back here as well. Just two to report, please, Chair. One change to the admin team in environment, actually in waste services. The change did result in a post being deleted from the establishment, resulted in a redundancy, but the post holder was actually supportive of that proposal, so it was put through as a non-contentious item. That was probably 2 months ago now. And more recently, the creation of a new post in the Parks and Street Care team, the creation of a tree officer, so designed to help us with the management of the tree stock of the borough.
Thank you very much, David. Any questions on this item? No. What I will say is, what I should have said on item 4 was the recommendation is just to note the report, and obviously we did. And the same with this one is the recommendation to note the report. Agenda item number 6, please.
And again, just an item to note, please. So it's a report that identifies sort of current staffing issues. Just a couple of things that we brought out for the committee tonight. So one is just a really brief summary, I suppose, of returning to a new normal. lots of it you've seen already, and lots of it we discussed at the very start of this meeting, just informally about changes, I suppose, from how we have operated in recent months. So you'll be aware that formal public meetings are now held physically. Other changes, employees based in the main civic centre have returned on a skeleton staffing basis from the 17th of May. So the levels of staffing have been determined by heads of service. The idea when the report was originally written was that we would, from the 21st of June, then begin to staff towards the new normal, I suppose, a hybrid way of working. That might still happen. I suppose what we will be doing is to be keeping an eye on the government's roadmap. So we're kind of waiting with bated breath, aren't we, that the 21st of June restrictions, they may be lifted. I suppose if not, we need to think again about whether we move further from where we are at the moment. But currently the plan would be from the 21st of June onwards to begin to look to that new normal. So I'd guess we'd see fewer people in the offices each day. It's a hybrid way of working, fewer cars in the car parks. And again, in terms of, I suppose, other benefits that we might perceive, potentially environmental benefits, benefits in terms of staff morale, efficiency, all of those things as well. So currently that is the plan still, but I think watch this space. Second item, Chair, was just a very brief update on the pay award for NJC employees. So NJC employees are really predominantly the whole of the workforce other than the most senior managers. The unions quite some months ago put in a pay claim for a 10% award across the board and some other additional changes to terms as well. More recently, and just after the local elections, the employer's side put in a counter offer of a 1.5% award and some other changes, I think, in terms of supportive working towards reducing stress in the workplace as well. I was at a meeting of the NOTS HR group today with East Midlands councils, but there's been no progress on that. So at the moment, the 1.5% counter award still stands. There's been no response from trade unions at national level. So that's just, again, an item, Chair, to note, please.
Thank you, David. I've got a question from Councillor Wilkinson on agenda item number 6.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks, David. Just got a quick question on the new normal and the hybrid method of working. Will you be looking to accommodate preferences where possible? So if somebody has more of a preference to be working in the office and somebody else has more of a preference to be working from home, providing other practicalities are not obstacles, will you be looking to accommodate that?
Sure. So I suppose the simple answer to the simple question is yes. There is probably a caveat, which is the heads of service have been charged with trying to establish the right staffing levels, if you like, things that members of the public would expect, you would expect, and colleagues would expect as well. But taking into account, personal preferences and needs. So it is a balance, and the other part of that is about, I suppose, perceived equity within an office as well. So we need to make sure that perhaps some people aren't seen to be treated more favourably or differently, I suppose. But no, we'd expect to take account of all sorts of different circumstances, and I think it's a real chance for us to probably really make a difference in, I mentioned staff morale as perhaps a benefit we might see out of all of this. And it is a real chance for us to probably work in those different ways to do a little bit more with home-life balance and to create a change that's productive for the organisation, but also something that's seen as a real benefit for the employees. So I think we're absolutely on the ball with the idea of trying to do the right thing for both parties, if you like, but it is finding that balance.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess sort of the sort of scenario I was envisaging there, where you've got two people in the same team who are doing pretty much the same job. One prefers to come in, and the other prefers to work at home. Like it would seem counterintuitive to sort of like strictly force them to half and half it. If there are those preferences.
So absolutely, and I think as examples in my own team, that's the sort of reasoning that I've tried to listen to. The difficulty is it changes over time, and obviously as people come and go, you need to be have an eye to that, and the situation might be dynamic, and there are some dangers with it. But no, of course, I mean, in my example, actually, it's officers that would prefer to come into work. Well, that's fine, that's good, and it also allows more flexibility with others. But it will work both ways, and I think, as I say, we're alive to that and want to try and get as right as we can for people and the place.
Any more questions on agenda item number 6? Councillor
I
Elliott?
was just going to say, Alec, I have a meeting tomorrow for the CLT, the County Council, and now I have a huge team of officers with adult social care and public health, and we're going to spend a lot of the time looking at a smarter way of and hybrid meetings. So, but whatever comes of that meeting, I'll be happy to share with you. It'd be well worth, and I'm sure you're aware of that. So,
Yeah.
so that finishes tomorrow, but if you want to contact me, then I can see what we're going to be doing. Okay.
Thank you. And again, just to give you some background about what's happening here as well, I mean, I've not covered it in detail, but there is a project underway to consider, from a technical perspective, the IT kit that we will need to work in those hybrid ways as well. So back to the original question, one of the things that we looked at to start with in that piece of work was just that, people's preferences. So we started with, what preferences do you have? And then we looked again at, well, okay, from a business perspective, what need and what demand is there? But we did start with what are the preferences. And so, you know, hopefully that gives you the feel for how we've tried to approach it a little bit as well. But no, I think input from other places would be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on agenda item number 6? No? Okay. The recommendation is to note the report. Thank you for your contributions. Item 7, there's nothing that I consider urgent. I would say that we are now moving from a public meeting to a closed meeting. So I would ask for a show of hands on agenda item number 8 to exclude the press and public. Thank you very much, councillors. Okay. Just want to thank if there is any members of the public watching today, thank you for joining us, and we'll move to a closed session now.